céadú síos bháil mo buíochas go bháil an Dr. Ward agus an Dr. Murcu for bringing forward this private members' bill here this evening. It's so important and nice to hear the initiatives being rolled out by the Minister as well. I honestly believe it's too little too late, not the bill, but the community policing and the different issues she's talked about, because drugs and drug crime and the whole epidemic and the money around them are just an epidemic in every town and village now. In my own area, I've spoken about it several times in this house. And the intimidation and demonization and striking fear into mothers and dads, grandparents and siblings of people who get sucked into this, what they call this very salubrious, they think it's a very salubrious way to live, but they find out different. And I'm delighted that the CAB successes in recent years are huge, massive success, but we don't have enough of them. And I salute the work of CAB. And indeed, I salute, the tone of the import of the bill is to try and get the funds that are seized back into communities, disadvantaged communities that have been terrorised by these gangs. But the 7-year waiting list, I understand that's protocol, but I think it's too long, it's too slow. And we need that funding, and we need more funding, much more funding with it, Minister. And I would, as I said, Superintendent, like, we don't have enough Gardaí. My own superintendent in care, and starved of resources for the Gardaí, starved of numbers. We had good numbers during the COVID, but now they've gone back into Templemore, and they need them. And we have excellent people. And I want to salute in the past people like in Limerick, where we had huge problems with crime, the different gangs, and the huge clean-up was done there. And we could learn that from other areas by Chief Superintendent Dave Sheehan and Lead Superintendent John Courtney, and a whole plethora of good Gardaí. But I believe in Count Cola that there's issues when people are convicted and in prison, and there's huge issues in the prison service. And I have wrote to the Minister for Justice, I have raised it in this house, I have written to the Secretary General of the Department, and a blind eye. You spoke earlier, listened earlier to Deputy Pinkel reporting the horrific cases of inaction in the HSE. But what's going on inside the prison service is quite shocking also. And to my area, I said it before, there's a cabal operating, and there's two prisons in my area, one in Cork, which I never got a complaint from, but I have a stream of people contacting me and whistleblowers about what's going on in Limerick. A cabal operating there, and they like to call themselves the mob, they like to be known as this, and they terrorise families, and it's right to the very top the prison service, and right to the top of the prison officers union, and good officers who try to stand up, and there are many good people there. They get silenced, they get intimidated, they get bullied and sullied, and their good names destroyed. This is shocking. And prisoners told actually downright, not right things to say to the prison officers, and spreading that kind of. We saw a prison officer recently who came out. We saw Pat Tobin raise this. We saw that Mac McSherry raise this. So how are we going to deal with the crimes outside if we can't deal with what's going on inside, supposed to get in reform and be retraining and everything else? So as I said, I want to compliment Mark Clifford also as well, Mick Clifford of the Examiner. He has exposed this lots of times, but to no avail. So I mean, there's sometimes interviews, and I wrote about an interview process that was going on, not proper procedures adhered to. People in relationships interviewing each other, and the Secretary General thinks it's okay, and the Minister thinks it's okay. So we must root out this rot that's inside in the prison service. As I said, Cork is impeccable, but this is, and other deputies are getting it too. If they care to raise it, I don't know, but it shouldn't be going on, and I salute the whistleblowers. And as I said, I knew a very young, a beautiful young girl who lost her life. And then, in order to intimidate a prison officer's family, her family name was impersonated, and horrible things, death notices sent, and horrible allegations about prison officers. This is despicable. Has no place in a modern society, but has no place in a modern prison service that needs to be reformed and needs to rehabilitate those prisoners that go in, and some people make mistakes and they end up there, but they try to get out of it. As I said, the good staff then, to try and stand up, they're bullied and sullied, and their names, and awful things said about their names. And when Garda Síochána visited the prison to interview a prison officer who complained, the records disappear, the video footage disappear of the Gardaí in the prison. So that's how bad it is. It's very, very serious, Concola, and sorry maybe for straying away from the bill, but this bill is very important. But we need also huge reform of the people inside. So as I said, union members then who have decided to go for positions in the senior union, they have been literally destroyed as well, because they don't challenge the chair of that union either. So as I said, there's huge, huge, huge issues and huge failures. And we have these prisoners inside, and they're being used by senior managers in the prison to tarnish good prison officers. This is unbelievable. In 100 years from the freedom of our state and independence. So I want action. Minister of State, you're here tonight. I want Minister Heather Humphreys to deal with this. I want the Secretary General to deal with this. Deputy Tobin has called for this also. So has Mark McSherry in the past, but futile. Good people's names sullied and destroyed, and it's a very, very senior and female prison chiefs as well doing this bullying and intimidation. It's a cabal. They like to be known as the mob. They spread their fear that way. I always read about mobsters in Chicago.
McGrath, you need to be careful that you don't.
I'm not. Look, it's there, and we can all be careful and around the house and mind the dresser. But let's deal with this. How are we going to reform? How are we going to get to the legislation that these good deputies tonight are putting forward, and people want to support it? And you're entertaining debate. Yes, I'm going to finish, but we need a thorough investigation into what's going on in Limerick prison.